What's fari, please?
All that blinking and trying to...
What's fari?
Oh.
What's fari?
Fari is yanga.
Yanga? What's yanga? Good morning, I'm Ayo Makinde. I've got to begin with, talking about phonetizing and all. That video that you showed me this morning, I know it's old. About palm oil.
Palm oil.
We need to get one of those your people in the studio to come talk about it, because I think it's about time we really, some of us really understand the value of the things that we have.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, palm oil was way more expensive, I think, than groundnut oil.
No, it was cheaper.
It was cheaper?
Yes.
Palm oil was cheaper.
I still remember clearly, Ororo was 2 shillings a bottle, and palm oil was 1 shilling.
So it was more everywhere?
Yes. But people preferred to use Ororo.
Why?
Because I don't know. I think it has to do with the aesthetics. You cooked your stew with vegetable oil.
It
looked more attractive than the one you cooked with palm oil.
English.
English, indeed.
But I don't think
because the palm oil is healthier.
Exactly.
In fact, what we call vegetable oil today, most of it is bleached palm oil. It's written there. Bleached palm oil, most of it coming from Singapore.
Who's checking?
Well, I'm reading.
When was the last time?
I want to know what's going on.
When was the last time you read any instruction or anything? You just see something looks like butter. Oh, it's butter. It's margarine.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not even margarine.
Okay.
Some mixture, some synthetic. They just call it something spread.
And the one that's most painful is honey. I'm not even going to talk about it because most
people add sugar to it.
No.
So.
You should check honey production online. Your ova will be gasted and your flabber will be whelmed. Anyway, don't look for that in the dictionary. You won't find it. I took a trip out of town yesterday. I'm sorry, I'm not allowing you to talk.
Okay, all right.
I just want to report myself.
You want to vent?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The Ogun State government of His Excellency Dapo Abiodun and the Commissioner for Transportation in Ogun State. Attention, please. Is there any reason while motorists on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway should spend 1 hour in traffic build-up on a major highway like Lagos-Ibadan Expressway between the Redeemed Christian Church of God camp and Mowe because some commercial buses are dropping and picking passengers along the expressway? Is there a reason? And the same thing happens in Lagos State. Dear Governor Sanwo-Olu, thank you, by the way, for the announcement you have just made. We'll talk about that one. We'll praise you for that one. But first of all, let us give you a knock. Sorry, maybe for a better word. Yeah.
Virtual.
Why should there be traffic at that Berger bus stop? Because of what? There is a bus stop there. It's a bus stop, not a park.
The thing is, can the number of bus stops be reduced? It is called an expressway for a reason. In many climes, you don't stop on the expressway at all, except your vehicle is broken down. It is called an expressway.
There's a new rule that Lagos State government has made now, which is good. Only I'm waiting for the enforcement. That if you cross a major highway, you pay a fine.
50,000 naira.
Well, guess what? Right under the
sign.
No. Right under the pedestrian bridge.
Yeah. By
Secretariat.
People are crossing.
The seat of the Lagos State government. People are crossing. And guess what? On both sides of the road are last mile officials.
Our problem is enforcement. I guess the last mile officials get overwhelmed. But how many do we want to catch? There's 1,000 crossing every day.
Have they catched enough? Sorry. Have they caught enough? Have they caught enough people?
They're overwhelmed.
Isn't that signifying that the deterrence is not strong enough?
They say for the same reason that all these commercial drivers, even non-commercial drivers, are beating red lights. I mean, your side says green, and then you go, and then it changes to red, and nobody wants to stop. Everybody just keeps going like it is still on green.
So, no, yesterday was really, it was hard. Well, I don't know. The only thing that came to me, and thank God, maybe because I have this privilege of being able to say it, how many lives have been lost? How much has been lost to people who will not have the privilege of speaking on radio or TV? And how do I even know that such a thing is not happening in Kano, in Kaduna, in Maiduguri, in Kebbi State, in other parts of the country as well? Let us obey our own laws, our own rules.
And then they will say Tinubu, they will say governor.
Everything is federal government. Thank God the governors are talking.
It is us. It is us. Let us obey the basic laws of the land. And we will see that in a few days' time, we'll begin to see the improvement in our country. I pledge to Nigeria, my country.
You wanted to say something?
Yes. This thing about this allegation that the governors are contributing to the crash in the value of the naira, because every month when they get their allocations, they change the money to dollars. And this allegation has been flying around for some time, and I've not heard any comment or any rebuttal from any governor. Have you?
Well, I heard one from Governor Makinde responding to the president of the Senate that unconfirmed sources.
No, that one is the 30 billion.
I'm coming. That, there's an unconfirmed report says that some governors are collecting 30 billion naira. And I repeated it a few times. Guys, is it true? What is the money? What are you guys doing with it? Well, and he also said, let me be clear. No governor has collected 30 billion naira. That's one of the allegations. This other one, my governor, dear Governor Seyi Makinde, GSM, or whichever governor, Governor Seyi Makinde. That was the slogan before the election. In fact,
GSM, which one?
If you didn't
Is it MTN or
Alera, if you didn't call his name well in Ibadan, you were lynched. What are you talking?
GSM.
He is the people's favorite, my governor. Democracy. So let the governors also speak to that one, that allegation, of being responsible for the inflation of the naira.
Okay, all right.
Speak to it.
Then I got this email in the course of the week, somebody who had an experience with police BRT enforcement team in Owode Elede in Akeredolu. He was told that he had gone into the bus lane and his car was impounded, and they collected my car key and didn't give me my documentation. I was told to return in 2 days. When I got there, I was charged 30,000 for the tow vehicle that towed my car from the point where I was arrested to this station, and then I was charged another 70K as penalty. I paid and collected my car and found that all my wheel covers had been stolen. So I'm wondering why I wasn't asked to pay on the day of the incident so that I could take my car home, and why they took all my wheel covers.
Are they gold-plated?
Not likely.
I'm sorry, I'm just saying.
Not likely. And the person who sent this says that he's a poor old man who's 72 years old. So he had to find his way somehow 2 days later to Akeredolu to collect his car, only to pay a fine of 100,000. He didn't say whether, you didn't mention whether you got any receipt for the fine that you paid, the 2 separate fines that you paid. I hope you're watching this morning. Please let us know if you got any receipt for that.
I think that's also something that the police PRO will be very much interested in, Mr. Hundeyin. I know it is he responds when he's taken up on issues that concern the police, particularly in Lagos.
Okay.
And he will always get to the bottom of it and go on it. I know that because he engages with people on X. So this is perhaps something that Mr. Benjamin Hundeyin would also want to speak to. Because it happened in Ikorodu, a locality in Ikorodu, most so certainly something that you'll be very much interested in speaking.
We would like to hear your response to this so that we can read it. So, what's our menu looking like this morning?
Food.
Food.
Rising cost of food. Cost of living.
Somebody's hungry.
I mean, it's definitely, come on. Why is the cost of living rising?
Good question.
You know, that's the first question we want to try to answer this morning.
And then immediately after that, we'll be looking at economic growth amid scarcity. Food again.
Exactly. And thirdly, we'll be having a conversation with Madonna University for their 25th anniversary this morning.
And then lifestyle, giving in scarcity.
Scarcity
You
again.
don't have and you're giving. Okay, you can still give even though you don't have a lot.
And the challenge is how and why. Why don't I keep this until I... Why am I even getting it? The artist of the week this morning is a human being.
He's a he.
How do you know?
He's a he.
I think it's Benedicta.
I know he's a he. Okay, it is called Ben.
Benz. You know Benz is a woman.
He, she, or it.
Shim.
Still a lovely day. It's getting cooler. Thank God for the rains that we've had in the last few days.
So the heat wave is over?
It's not over.
Occasionally try to be nice. Occasionally.
Don't raise false hopes. The heat wave is not over. We have been told that it is going to run for some time. So why are you raising people's hopes for nothing?
Did you see that image that people put out? Did you see it?
Which one?
They said there is Earth, there is Venus, then there is Nigeria before the sun.
I'm sorry, my partner is this way this morning.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry he's raising false hopes.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Nigerians are facing one of the worst economic crises in years, triggered by surging inflation, the result of monetary policies that have pushed the currency to an all-time low against the dollar. I think yesterday, I heard 1,900 and something or the other. The situation has provoked anger and protests across the country, even though we have heard on one occasion or two that it is the opposition parties that are instigating these protests. But if you go to the market and you see how much prices are in the market, you will not wonder why there are protests here and there. The latest government stats released showed that inflation rate in January rose to 29.9, and I keep saying, why don't they just say 30? So we will know. And that 29.9 is the highest since 1996, mainly driven by food and non-alcoholic beverages. The currency, the naira, is now almost 2,000 naira for $1, reflecting more than 300% loss in the value from last year. The plummeting currency worsened an already bad situation, further eroding incomes and savings. Incomes haven't gone up, but prices are going up every day. One tuber of yam is about between 3,000 and 4,000 naira. So I always wonder, what are people eating? Well, we shall have a chance to ask our panel that question, and our panel is made up of a legal practitioner, Mr. Johnson Babalola. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
For joining us.
Let me keep to the culture. Let me do like this, just like you guys as well. That's a good thing. All right?
This is what they say, Anaka pose. We have joining us from our studio in Abuja, Professor Anthony Chibo, Head Research and Investment for Development Africa, Swiss Business School in Zurich. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Yes, Mr. Babalola. Costs are going up every day.
Absolutely.
Incomes are not going up. There's protests here and there. How do you think Nigerians are coping?
Well, that's a multi-million-dollar question, so to say. And I'll be speaking as a Nigerian who lives abroad. I live in Canada, and I've been living in Canada for, 20-something years. And
I beg.
no,
She's saying that you don't understand.
No.
She'll be shocked that many of us overseas understand perhaps at the same level as Nigerians in Nigeria, because there's something that many people don't really pay attention to, which is the effect of whatever is happening here affects us over there as well. You have family members that call you every day, that are in crisis, financial crisis, health crisis.
Send dollars.
Absolutely. So how are people coping? It is tough. I've been here now for about 3 weeks, and I have seen people cry because they cannot afford the finance to take care of their families. You know, I was in a program a couple of days ago. I'm a storyteller. I'm sorry. So I need to tell some stories. I was in a program about a couple of days ago, and, you know, a friend of mine got a call basically saying that his friend had died. And he said, oh my God, this is as a result of all that is happening in the country because he has not been able to afford his medication for the last few months. So people are now basically, you know, looking up to family members and to support them in a big way. And people are also going around doing unorthodox things. Medications that, you know, normally if you go to the hospital, you know, to get your medication or go to the pharmacy, now you're looking at, you know, the local healers to take care of you or the pastors and people like that. You know, so people are basically taking, you know, going through some unorthodox means to just survive. And it is tough on them. It's tough on their health. It's tough on their family. And where do we go from here? So Nigerians are trying to just survive.
One way or another.
One way or the other, and it's not the best way.
Sorry, before we go to Professor Chibo, you are also into policy, public policy and strategy.
Right.
Because you are a founding member of the Ontario Center for Public Policy and Strategy.
Yes.
Were we on the way here before, or as some people believe that we had been living in a fool's paradise, having a false reality, you know, all the while? Were we on the way here before based on the policies that we operated on, the systems that we operated on before, or this is something that just befell us suddenly?
No. It did not befall us just suddenly. We've always been on this route. Somehow, you know, from 20, 30, 40 years ago, if you have been, you know, paying attention, we were on our way here. I left Nigeria in the 90s, in the early 90s. At that time, pounds was 1 to 15. And at the time I thought, oh my God, you know, things were bad. But there were people who were older than me at that point who said to me, look, you're just starting. You know, it's going to get worse. So at the time, I had a couple of friends who were always buying dollars just to save. And they kept saying to us, it will get worse. You see, there's a difference between, you know...
This was as far back as in the 90s?
In the 90s.
Wow.
In the 90s. And, you know, there's a difference between leading and managing. What we need, basically, is, you know, people that can lead us. And it is my hope and prayer that our leaders will transform into properly leading. At the end of the day, you have to be able to empower. You have to be able to inspire. You also have to be able to put in place policies that will basically help your country to grow. Now, and it's at every level. You know, sometimes we focus on the federal government alone. When you have a system whereby at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level, and even at the individual level, you have not put some policies in place that will make sure that you look beyond today. You are thinking about tomorrow.
Then you know what I mean? On the way to where we are today.
That's it.
Okay.
If you want, just quickly, if you want to go to Akure from here, and you are not planning how to get to Akure properly, the route and, you know, how to be safe and all those things, you will end up somewhere else.
Yeah, Prof, you want to go to
Yes.
Prof the other time?
Prof, at the root of all this, many would say, is the removal of fuel subsidy, which happened on May 29th. What are the other causes, to your mind, for this situation in which we find ourselves?
Thank you. I'll answer your question shortly, but I just want to say something very, very clearly. We are in a food crisis. We are in a cost of living crisis. Nigeria is in a cost of living emergency crisis. Let me get that very, very clear. When you have massive unemployment, when you have a very, very dire cut and discrepancies in the supply chain, especially for food, when you have a massive devaluation of your currency as we're experiencing now, and you also have effective food inflation, in my calculation, of over 250%, you're in a crisis. You're in emergency. What causes it? I mean, the cause, number one cause of this is mismanagement. Mismanagement and corruption of policies that ought to lead to development. Let's get something clear. Currency devaluation, inflation, unemployment, these are the causes of a food or cost of living crisis. But the causes of these things that I've just mentioned are mismanagement. Mismanagement, corruption, lack of political will, and many other things to say. So that's why we are there. That's why we are where we are here. We're in a crisis, we're in an emergency. There's fuel on the floor because the optics are bad. The optics are bad. What do I mean by the optics are bad? We're being told that sacrifices have to be made. We're being told to be patient. But when you look at the people that are telling you this, the perception is, if not the reality, the perception is that they are living in opulence. They're living in opulence. They're living in very, very high standards of expenditure. At the very same time that people are fighting for yam and fighting for bread. This is no joke. This is an emergency. This is a serious emergency. And again, you know, let's sit down, take a breath, and look at things. People have asked me, even on my way coming here, hello, can I hear you? People have asked
we can
me,
hear you.
What do we do? You know, let me put something in perspective now. I talked about supply chain discrepancies. Supply chain means from production to consumer, there are problems. Either security issues with the farmers. Farmers can't go to the farms to produce, and therefore nothing is being produced. And then even when those things that are produced are there, being transported, there's so many dangers on the road for food being or other commodities being transported, and also a lot of levies. So by the time food gets to the consumer, it's very high. But let's go back to the one of the farmers. Farmers cannot go to farms to produce. We've been saying it for long. Let's examine that question. Farmers are afraid to go to the farms, afraid for their lives, to produce food, to farm in a country, a nation, a great country as Nigeria. And we can't do anything about it? Nothing is being done about it? Seriously, let's examine that question. Our farmers can't go to the farms and produce food because they're afraid that people attack them. A nation with a standing army and nothing is effectively being done about it, that's a problem. That's a problem. I know why I'm highlighting that, because production is the solution. Production to increase supply of food, to increase supply of the dollar, whatever you want to bring about here, the answer is production.
Let me ask you the same question that I asked Mr. Babalola here earlier. I asked him, were we on our way here, or if this is something that just happened on us suddenly? He referenced the 90s, and part of the policies of the 90s at the time was first-tier exchange market, second-tier exchange market, structural adjustment programs, and all of those issues, intervention of IMF, World Bank, and other multinationals and multilaterals. Were we on the way here, or this is something that just happened on us suddenly?
No, we were on the way here, and there are many points at which we can start calculating when we started, okay? But let's get something straight. If you don't plan if you don't plan properly, you will end up where you are right now. Let's go to the 70s. You may remember there was something called the Udoji Awards. We had a windfall of oil revenues in the 70s, and we basically, or at least the government at that time, basically said there's a lot of money and implied that, they didn't really know what to do with it, and so they started giving out money to civil servants and anybody that needed it. Meanwhile, we had only across the country, there were only 2-lane roads going everywhere. Nobody thought about expanding the roads network so that transportation, nobody thought of building an effective railway system so that the transportation of goods between producer and consumer would be cheap and effective. Nobody thought of diversifying the economy at that time and going into tech or going into an agro-based mechanized farming. Nobody thought of that. And that's planning. So if you didn't do that, you didn't plan well, and you end up where you are. Another thing, again, is that everybody, the culture which still exists till now, was a culture of corruption and depleting the national cake, or should I say the national funds. And so until we get to the stage where 5 people are gathered and 4 people are gathered, and 1 person steals, and the other 3 people tell the person you can't still return the money back because we're all Nigerians and this is all our money, until we get to that stage, then we're still not planning. Okay. We're still going backwards. So to answer your question, my brother, it didn't just come today. Our culture over the last 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years has led us to where we are now. Our lack of planning for infrastructure has led us to where we are now. Okay. So,
all right. Yeah. Let me ask you, Mr. Babalola. Like I said, just about 5 minutes to deal with this particular one before we move into solutions. The intervention, or the solution that many people, young people, have been talking about is to japa. I can't take this anymore.
Absolutely.
In fact, this country is this country is bad. All kinds of slandering of the nation, poo-pooing the nation, as some people would say, from time to time. That's what people hear. How much of a solution, how helpful is that people will travel? I'll come to you, Prof. But let me ask this of Mr. Babalola. People will always say, people will always travel. We are all, creatures of migration and all of that. But is that the solution?
It is not. It is not a solution at all. And
but for the individuals that are traveling,
yes,
it is.
I'm going there.
Like yourself.
Thank you for reminding me of it.
But you did jackpot.
I jackpot, and I'm an immigration lawyer. That's part of what I do as well. Okay. So this is a question that is thrown at me on a daily basis, and I see this live, and I tell people that for some people, immigration is a solution. Listen, when you live in an environment where you are not fulfilled, you have dreams, and the dreams are slipping away from your hands gradually. And hope is important, but at the same time, when you know that you don't hope to even reach hope, then the next thing is to look for your own solution. Just like in many homes today, people will have barbed wires around their houses, have a gate man, and that could be because they're looking for solutions to solve their problems. It's sadly the same thing with immigration. So when you see a woman, as an example, again, this is just an example, who had been abused so much in her own country, and who had sought for, support and from the security agencies, and nobody was coming to her aid. And then someone says to her, if you go to another country where you'll be safe, will you take the opportunity? That's a solution for that person. A young man that had a first class from a university that had been roaming the street, trying to survive. There's no job anywhere. And then you say, hey, we're going to give you some scholarship to go to England, to Canada, to the US, or wherever, and progress in life, he will take it. That's a solution. And that is one thing that all of us, the leaders and all of us, should pay attention to. You know, we did not start today. You know, Andrew wanted to check out. I believe it was in the 80s.
Yes.
Andrew wanted to check out.
Yep.
Now, it was not just Andrew now. Now, you know, James is checking out. You know, Rebecca is checking out. So everyone is checking out. So at the end of the day, it is not a solution. You know, we really have to dig deep into this. The leadership have to take this seriously. When you lose your best brains to a foreign country, you are losing a generation. You know, that is the truth. There are many, many towns in Canada, in the US, in the UK, where there are, you know, so many Nigerian professionals doing very well, right? And they don't want to come back. You know, we fool ourselves sometimes, with due respect, that this is home, you will come back to your house. But listen, I think it was, you know, a British writer who said, nobody leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. Sometimes people are forced to leave Nigeria because they have tried everything, everything to stay here, to make it work. And their only solution is to leave. Now, the other side to this, briefly, is this. It is not everyone that goes abroad that finds that solution. There are many that go that will say to themselves, oh my God, maybe I should have stayed back home. Okay, and just roughen it more. Because for everyone that progresses, there's also someone out there who is struggling with mental health, with health issues, with psychological issues, cultural issues. So we need to have a debate. This is a crisis. When, you know, the whole, you know, team of doctors in an hospital just takes off one day and says, hey, we are going to, you know, Canada, wherever. It is a crisis, and the leadership must really take it seriously. Absolutely. But it is not, you know, leaving the country can be a solution to some people, but it is not
for everyone.
For everyone. For the country, though, it can also be used in two ways.
Win or lose.
Win or lose. You can go out there, like some countries would do. Okay, we are sending you out. We'll prepare you well to the world for the world out there. Then we bring you back. We will create that environment for you to prosper and do well. There are many Nigerian professionals overseas who would like to come back today and contribute. But are we providing them with the conducive environment
to come back?
Now, Professor, there are all kinds of ramifications to this. And some people are looking at the very simplistic solution of an increase in salaries, which is why Labour is calling out a strike for next week. Even that has its own problems, as you probably know. Do you think that increasing salary is a major way of sorting out this problem? Okay, minimum wage is now 30,000 naira. A bag of rice is 75,000 naira. I mean, no matter how you do the math, it's one plus one is never going to equal 2. Professor?
Now he might take 10.
Can you hear us, Prof?
Yeah, I got. Okay. You left for about 3 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but I got the question. Okay. I got the question at the beginning about salaries.
Yes.
Salaries, right?
Yes, Professor.
Are they hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So let me just go ahead with this. An increase in salary is always welcome by any worker. Yeah. The issue here is, where's the money going to come from? And if you increase the salaries, is your economy able to sustain the increase in salaries? So it is every citizen's business to ask the question, to demand for an increase in salary, yes, because the cost of living has gone up, but to also ask, are you managing the economy well enough to make sure that even when you increase our salaries, we can sustain this? And the answer is, with the current management of the economy, and I'm talking of across governments, across the last 25 years, so that we don't get political here. The answer to the question is no. The management of the economy will not sustain an increase in salaries. The concentration should be an increase in production.
And to that production
and
question,
a decrease
Prof,
in consumption.
On the issue of production
ahead.
that you just raised now, we got this message from X. Festus Akinboyewa is saying, there is no doubt that the rise in energy prices due to the unavoidable removal of subsidies is the main reason why cost of living is rising in our country and in the world. But greed makes it worse in Nigeria. Our farmers now prefer to take their products to other African countries to earn foreign currency. But to this one, what then would you say? It's not in some cases, in this particular case now, that Mr. Akinboyewa is raising. It's not because we don't have production. It's that the production is being taken out because of what he calls the greed of some people.
Well, I will agree and disagree with him at the same time. Now, the issue now is, why is it attractive? Why is it more attractive for somebody producing here to take it out? That's the question. Why can't he produce here, sell here, and make enough money that he's happy? Why does he feel that he has to take it out and get foreign currency for him to be happy? That's because of the pedestal the foreign currency has been put on. Because of the demand for the foreign currency. Because when he goes that route, he ends up with foreign currency, and when he changes it back to the local currency, he has a ton more of money than he would have had if he was sold it in local currency here. So the issue is, why is the foreign currency at a higher pedestal than our local currency? And the answer is because we are not producing. We are not producing enough in bulk to export and get that foreign currency in that amount of, in that quantity, so that the demand on our own currency will be more than the demand for the foreign currency. So that's the round tripping, that's the problem. So I agree with him and disagree with him.
Prof.
The issue now is this. If you had an ample supply of foreign currency in your country, vis-a-vis your own currency, you would have no need. There wouldn't be pressure. There wouldn't be so much naira going towards the demand for the foreign currency.
But Prof,
and you see,
the issue
it's
here,
not just the physical demand for it,
as you ask you this question, now, Prof. The issue now, I mean, you've spoken about the need for us to produce, and you've spoken about the need for us to patronize Nigerian stuff and all of that, but who's going to take the leadership? I have been hearing of focusing on agriculture since the 70s. Operation Feed the Nation, before the Second Republic came back. In the 80s, during the Second Republic, we had the Green Revolution program. All of that was suspended between 83 and 85. In 1985, we had what the federal government at the time under Babangida called a Better Life program, DFRI. They did a lot of work, developed some infrastructure, rural infrastructure, Directorate for Food, Roads and Rural Infrastructure, so that food from the rural areas can be easily brought into the nation. When the Fourth Republic started, the government of Obasanjo reiterated the need for us to return to agriculture. Producing. What then is the problem? It's not because we don't have these initiatives. What is the problem?
The problem is implementation. And why we are not implementing is because there's a culture, a civilization of corruption. A culture of corruption. That is why the policy could be good, the policy may be beautiful, but the implementation is zero. And that's why I said until we get to a consciousness, a social and cultural consciousness that there is trouble, there is fire on the mountain, And the only people that are going to quench that fire is the person right there in front of you in the mirror. And that is why you need to question. You see, going back in history, what I'm saying now is the only solution to the way out. Going back in history, whether you check the Russian Revolution, you check the French Revolution, you check even the American Revolution, it has been the people coming to a decision that, you know what, this is enough. And it's not necessary that there has to be mayhem everywhere. No, you just have to understand that you do not steal. You do not steal from yourself. You do not steal from yourself. So if there's a MAMSA, if there's a DFRI, if there's an Operation Free the Nation, if there's a Green Revolution and the likes, then the people have to take pride in doing and executing this. And if there is along the line mismanagement, the people call the very people right there and there, not 20 years later, right there and there, you call the managers to question. Why is it that so money has been put into this project and 2 years later, nothing, we don't see anything? And we all know the reason why. It's because everybody that has been involved in that project has operated according to the culture, which is drain the money down. And then the next day you're asking why there's no school. The next day you're asking why there are no silos.
All right, Prof.
There are no good airports.
We're running out of time.
The money didn't go to Cameroonians.
Yeah.
The money went to Nigerians.
Okay. So at the end of the day, you're saying it's all on us. Well, Mr. Babara, that's what he is saying. And so what should be our rhetoric as a nation to the people? Because as you are very well aware, no Nigerian anywhere in the world is insulated from what is happening on the Nigerian soil.
I think the first thing that, and I agree with him, but the first thing we need to really look at is to revisit our commitment as Nigerians and most especially our leaders. Because you have to be selfless when you're a leader, and you have to put the right policies in place and then focus on the right things. He has mentioned, my friend there has mentioned a number of, things that needed to be done. But one area that, we need to also focus, security issues is always there. But you spoke about, jackpine. Nigerians spend millions of dollars every year sending their kids abroad to study. Human capital. We are not investing in human capital in this country. All you need to do is just walk down the street there. You see so many young people begging for food, or risers. People that, you go to the hotels, you see young people that should be in school, studying how we should be developing. There is no investment in young people in this country. And we need to start doing that. That's the message that the government has to send out. We are ready. We are prepared to work with you, but we want to listen to you. Because if you're not listening, and like my friend said, and I agree with that, your lifestyle, you yourself, integrity is important. It's all about taking a look at your value system. It's all about taking a look at ethics. It's all about saying that, trust me. And for you to trust someone, the lifestyle of that person and how they behave, how they use public funds must also speak to that for you to be able to trust them. So that is the message. But it's not just about message. It's not just about rhetoric. It's all about doing, taking those steps and saying, we will invest in education. Take a look at the primary school next to your house. What do you see? And if you ask yourself as a Nigerian that, will I send my child to that school? And if your answer is no, we have not done our work. And if Nigeria were to be a PLC today, will you invest in it?
Now, as you said, they are asking us to, the federal government or state government, everyone, the leaders are asking Nigerians to buckle up and all of those things. Be patient. As a storyteller, what stories are we to be telling them? And how should we be telling them that story in a way that they will believe us and not in a way that we will believe them and not say they have come again?
Yeah, here's a story they need to hear. I was at a conference couple of years ago, anti-trafficking, human trafficking. And government officials came, they spoke, the big language, the big grammar, everything. And then after doing that, they left. Photo ops and all those things, and they left. And then some of us who are professionals were now advising those young people, don't allow yourself to be trafficked. Don't allow yourself to be taken to Libya, to these places. You will suffer. And you might die. You might be raped. You might be abused. And one young lady stood up and said, "Boy, I'm dead here already. I have been abused, sexually, physically, mentally, financially. I've been a graduate for 5 years, no job. So I would rather take that risk through the forest because I'm already dead here." That is the story that you'll be hearing, that there are Nigerians who are walking dead. And they have to change their story and say that we are listening to you. If you don't listen, if you don't spend the time with, your locals, and if you don't change your lifestyle, like I said, to say, hey, tighten your belt.
Lead by example.
I want to lead by example. I will tighten mine too.
Now, Professor, quickly, in one sentence, your parting shot, please.
The solution to Nigeria's current problems lies with Nigerians. The national will to change the situation we find ourselves in. The grass is not greener outside. The grass is green here, very green. The thing is that we must take up the hoe, and I'm talking figuratively now. We must take up the hoe, the cutlass, and make sure we farm it here. I stay abroad as well, and I also stay here now. And I know there's far more opportunities here than there are outside. You want to remain a slave class with potential all the time, go out. You want to be a class of people that have innovated and starting something, you only make name when you do what is yours. That is why.
All right, Prof.
One thing that is ours.
We could go on and on about this because it's a very, very interesting and touching question. But just before we go, some responses came in to this conversation. This one is from Abdul Rahman on X, saying jettisoning the Naira redesign was purely political, and its attendant economic impact is the adverse inflation rate we face now. The government should revisit that policy to reduce the amount of Naira in circulation. And then there's an email from Mohammed Awal, a large-scale farmer in Jigawa State, says smallholder farmers and even large-scale farmers don't have the capacity to export farm produce to foreign countries to attract foreign currency or dollars. Businessmen and those corrupt civil servants, politicians, because of EFCC and government fighting corruption, don't take their loot to bank. They resort to buy farm products and stock in warehouses to export. Smallholder farmers and large-scale farmers usually sell their produce at harvest time to pay debts and settle pressing family issues. Thank you. This is coming from a farmer. Okay, now he has mentioned civil servants earlier. Now, what I also know is that agriculture is the only business that civil servants can do. Is this something worth considering? Dear Head of Federal Civil Service, the ball is in your court. You wanted to close the program.
Yes. We want to thank our guest this morning, Professor Anthony Chibo, Head, Research and Investment for Development, Africa, Swiss Business School, Zurich, who joined us from our studio in Abuja, as well as Mr. Johnson Babalola, a legal practitioner who lives in Canada, I might add. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Prof said he also lives in Canada.
Well, I just said it, Zurich.
Oh, okay.
He lives in Zurich.
I live in Nigeria, just saying.
Thank you very much for coming to share your...
We said we are buying. He said he's back home. I'm going back home too, so...
Partly.
Yeah, partly, yes.
Thank you. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.
Thank you so much.
hungry for goodness. With a splash of golden terra oil, a mom can transform a frown into a smile. Make a lunch hour a happy hour. Change no thanks into yes please. Provide care when our nearest and dearest needs it most. And resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty, nourishing family meals is all that matters. The world needs moms, because where there are moms, there is hope, happiness, and love. Golden Terra Oil, or pure love.
The Duchess International Hospital caters to every aspect of the family's health needs. A one-stop shop for maternity and child health services, emergency medicine and critical care, medical and surgical subspecialties, dental and eye care, and a range of other subspecialties and services, all available at a single location right here in the heart of Ikeja. And it really doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket using your HMO or private insurance. We focus completely on providing that world-class affordable healthcare for all the family at all times.
Where's Glory? Excuse me, ma'am.
Hello? Where Glow now?
I dare here.
Glow, don't go village. Tell all our customer.
Everybody pay attention. See, now Glow berekete 10x. Now he might they take tension my customers. Now they dash me 10 times the credits when I load. Or even summer me double data join.
Yeah. Wait, so with 1.5 when they give on the bus, so you they enjoy up to 15,000 naira credit and data.
And I say I never finish you. See, when I say we enjoy, if we not join Glow berekete 10x, when I go get 1,000 naira welcome credits.
Glow, you don't win.
Una see they here. Hello, please, I'm looking for Glow. Please save now Glow with they find. Now Glow with they go. Okay, so
enjoy 10 times the value of your recharge on Glow berekete 10x. You also get 1,000 naira for calls and data and double data bonus on your subscription.
My youth man, them can't face way. The jack is one life.
Now, remember, we opened the program by asking the question, why is the cost of living rising? And now we want to talk about the surprise growth in Nigeria's economy.
Cost of living going up, standard of living falling, but there's economic growth.
No, the cost of living rising and economy is also rising.
Okay, anyway, the experts will explain to us what is going on, how that is possible.
Because
that our lives are getting worse, but they say our economy is growing.
The economy, it's just cost of living that is rising. Our life is not getting worse.
If I cannot buy rice to feed my children, if I cannot buy tomato to cook for my children, how is my life getting better?
You are leading me into a conversation that I don't want to have with you in public. Because when we were growing up, I only had rice 3 times a year. Christmas, New Year, and Ileya.
Times have changed.
Okay, anyway. Let's have this. You know, what are we talking about exactly? Nigeria's economy grew 3.46 in the 4th quarter of last year. And that opens a new tab, a similar pace as it did a year earlier. Our data showed on Thursday. GDP grew quicker in the 2 previous quarters of 2023, 2.54% in the 3rd quarter and 2.51% in the 2nd. Growth in the final quarter was 3.52% in annual terms. So the president had said during a November budget speech that the economy was expected to grow by at least 3.76% in 2024. Guess what? The National Bureau of Statistics said full year growth for 2023 stood at 2.74%. Meanwhile, the president is projecting a 3.76% growth in 2024. Let's have conversations with Mr. Charles Iyore, Principal Partner, Dion & Associates Limited, as well as Wilson Erumebo, Guest Lecturer, School of Oriental and African Studies in the University of London. Both of them join us virtually. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let me begin with you, Mr. Iyore. The surprise economic growth. Okay, let me ask the same question as I asked the first time. Is this also coming as a surprise to you?
Good morning, Mr. Makinde. Good morning, Alero. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. Growth can have different kind of drivers. It can be either through productivity gains or efficiency gains. I don't have the figures, so I can't speak on behalf of anyone. All I can say for certain is that it is possible that there were some efficiency gains in the system. In other words, the waste that was going on has reduced, but that doesn't stop those who are still in the dark place because the light hasn't reached them from complaining. So it is possible, I don't have the figures, that those gains were efficiency gains. And there might be 1 or 2 indicators to show that. It says that for a small percentage of society, 3% who are in the civil service or paid employment, now they're getting their salaries in time and they're not being delayed. So that's some measure of groups, slightly very insignificant. But like I said, all of these studies are not laboratory studies, food chemistry, acid, and they're social studies. They actually need to reflect on the lives of people. What you're saying basically that it reads otherwise in the lives of people. And let's leave it at that. If you have the figures, I don't know whether it's
okay. Just a quick one. Yeah, my apologies. Just a quick follow-up on what you said. Efficiency gains. Yes. In what way, manner, shape, or form? Because if we're to say there were efficiency gains, how come they haven't reflected on the lives of the people, as Alera said?
Yeah, like I told you, if we took off the waste that was on petrol, diesel, for example, that means you're spending less money, you're not spending any more money, that's an efficiency gain. How you deploy that efficiency gain is really another matter.
Okay.
And that takes us to a place what is called enterprise modeling. Because if you don't have an enterprise model, most of those effects will not be reflected as quickly as possible. And I don't think we've ever had an enterprise model for the country since 1960. So without an enterprise model, it's difficult for some of those things to happen when you pull all the levers.
Mr. Rumabo, please, can you just tell us what specific sectors of the Nigerian economy are driving this growth that we're talking about?
Yes, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me. So I want to make three main points. The first one, relates to your question, and it's good, and the other two are not so good news. So for the first question, for the question you asked, the first point is that oil grew for the first time since 2020. So the oil sector, so we have oil and non-oil GDP. So what we saw in the numbers that the National Bureau of Statistics published is that since the second quarter of 2020, when we had COVID, oil has been showing negative growth consecutively for 14 months, 14 quarters. So in the fourth quarter of last year was the first time that we saw positive growth from oil. And what that growth was 12%. It's quite huge. And when you then also look at oil production, we saw an average oil production of about 1.55 million barrels per day, as published by the NBA. So it means that that's one of the key areas that growth came from, whilst the non-oil sector grew by just 3%. So when you aggregate that, because again, the non-oil sector has a much larger share of our GDP, it's almost about 96% of our GDP. So 3% non-oil, 12% oil, and then you have 3.4% in overall aggregate growth for the quarter. Now, when you then look at annually, to look at not just the fourth quarter alone, the first, second, third, and fourth quarter, you would see that growth was 2.7%, and it's even much lower than almost all the forecasts that I saw, at the beginning of the year. Many people expected that we will grow at 3%, 3.1%, 3.2%. The federal government was even very optimistic about how about growth rate. But so 2.7% is really quite low.
But what was the basis of the expectations of the federal government at the time, and where do you think we may have gotten it wrong that informed the low growth that you're talking about now?
Yeah, so one thing you would always see, especially when you look at the government forecast in the budget, is that the federal government is always the most optimistic about the economy. Their projections are always very high as far as growth is concerned, and understandably so, because if the government is not optimistic, who else will be about the country? But the question is then, how do we then match our optimism with action? I think that's where we've always falling short.
So collaboration is also lacking, sort of?
Absolutely. So not just even collaboration, I'm even speaking to implementation itself. So you have a budget. Where are your resources going to? What areas are you spending more money on? Are you trying to ensure that you revive the productive sectors of the economy, sectors that have the capacity and potential to create jobs? So one of the things, I'm linking to the first question that Madam Alero, pointed out, is that when you disaggregate growth and where it's coming from, you would see that just about 3 sectors of the economy, contribute almost about 80% or thereabout, even more, to growth that we saw for the full year. So I'm talking about finance, ICT, and agriculture just did about 11% contribution to growth. But finance was 39%, while ICT was about 48%. So you can see that even when you disaggregate growth by the 19 major sectors that we have, you would see that just about only 2 of those sectors are driving growth. So that's why, many a times at the NESG and even some of the works I do, we always emphasize that it's not just about growth in itself. Growth is very important, but we also need to know the sectors that are contributing to that growth. And that's where that link to development, link to employment can then be strengthened. And so when you say growth, for instance, and you're trying to examine how much growth we have and how that links to inflation, you mentioned at the start of the program that we have growth, but then cost of living inflation is increasing. Yes, both can happen, at the same time. And one of the things, like I mentioned, if you see that growth is coming from oil, what happened was, the federal government has been trying to stop oil theft, so oil production has marginally increased, in the last couple of months. So that means that it's not so much of a growth that is coming from agriculture or the food supplying sectors. It's growth that is just coming from oil. So you can clearly see that this may not even have that strong impact in terms of reducing inflation. So I think that clarity is needed.
Okay, Mr. Yore, we have this surprise growth, and then we have inflation, which has now reached 29.9, like I said at the beginning. I don't know why we just don't say 30%. So in real terms, what is the benefit of that growth to Nigeria's economy and to the people of Nigeria?
Well, like I said, and like Dr. Rumba has clearly explained, most of these things you're saying cannot happen if you don't have a model that links all of them together. And we don't have a model that links all of them together. And you need to put that model in place and then build on top of it for those effects to take place. And we have never done that since 1960. So let me tell you, for example, if you want to have an enterprise model for the country, you need to know clearly the demographics. So start from the family. And the family demographics is exactly what it is at the very top. You have those who no longer can work, the elderly and the infirm. And then you also have what you call the veterans. Then you have those in the middle who are the ones converting the assets into what you get, people like you and me who are still working. And then you have those who are being trained to replace the working class. Now, if you don't have that clearly, when it is time for you to deploy your Commonwealth, the ratios are inappropriate and those effects cannot be seen. So, and I like to answer those questions, but I don't have all the figures. But it's nice for you to have those tools of analysis. That if all of those three sectors, which exist in your family and in the country, are not at the very first line of enterprise modeling, then you are obviously going to misapply resources, and that needs to take place. And the civil service normally, like in England, would provide the models for the political class. You see, if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. But I've been for a long, long time. The civil service hasn't done that. And I remember one head of service saying, the government wants to make a fool of itself, will help you make a bigger fool of yourself. I guess that's where we are. We've been there since more than 40 years.
All right. Mr. Yora, thank you. Mr. Erumabo, let me come back to you. Now, you wanted to talk about three things the other time. You've only mentioned two. I don't know if you want to talk about those ones, as well as, and perhaps they will also answer this question of sustaining this economic growth and making those economic growth realities in people's lives. Mr. Yore talked about the fact that, okay, you have the wins, but you don't deploy it in a way that the people will feel it. So can you help us marry the two so that people can actually appreciate that something is happening?
Very interesting question. So the third point I was going to make actually links to that question you just asked. And the key thing here is that the size of the economy has shrunk, relative to last year. And I say this, and I'm referring to in dollar terms. And I will also say why it's important in dollar terms. So in 2022, Nigeria's GDP was $471 billion, right? 471. In 2023, with the latest figure the NBS released, it's now somewhere around 356 billion. Wow. If you decide to do the calculation by, maybe you want to do FX per quarter to divide GDP figures per quarter, at best, you get something close to $380 billion. So we're moving from 471 to be quite optimistic, let me use $380 billion. So that's a shrunk in the size of Nigeria's economy in dollar terms. And one of the things, key point to also note is that for 2023, Nigeria may no longer be the largest economy in Africa. And this is something we've always known to be, growing up. Nigeria has the largest GDP. And so for the first time in maybe a long time or forever, I don't know, Nigeria may no longer be the largest economy in Africa, especially when we wait for Egypt to publish their GDP figures for the last quarter. Now, why this is important, and this is where I'm going to, is per capita income. So if you then look at Nigeria's per capita income, we're somewhere around $2,000, in 2022, and with these new numbers, we're moving to about $1,700. And the last time we were below $1,700 was in 2006. So that's why I said the 2 points I was going to make, the fact that growth is lower annually, 2.7%, and this point that I just made about shrinking per capita income in dollar terms, are not so much good news for Nigeria. Now, linking to your question as to growth and how growth can connect to development, it's not just about growth for one quarter or growth for maybe we have 3.4% in Q4 and we're so excited. The most important thing, and if you look at countries that have lifted people out of poverty, created jobs, one key ingredient is that growth must be high, growth must be consistent, for a long period of time for it to impact the lives of people. It's not about growing up and down and you move. In fact, we've had 2 recessions from 2016 till now.
Mr. Roma, I'm sorry for butting in, but the reason I'm asking this question, right, is because we talk about these growth things like it's something that has to be imported. Now, you talked about the fact that you and Mr. Ira have spoken about the fact that we need to sustain these things and all. I mentioned the issue of collaboration the other time. It is the federal government, as you said the other time, that has the high hopes of, forecasting high figures and all. Is there a carry-along system that would bring in the productivity or not of the states to help that figure, to help the federal government and Nigeria, achieve these high figures and perhaps even, surpass it? That's the reason I brought in the issue of collaboration the other time, because unless that happens, I really don't see how we as a nation can grow if we don't have that kind of partnership. How can we, what is there? Do you see a system of collaboration, harmonization of activities between the federal government's ministries, departments, and agencies and those of the states?
I would add even partnerships between federal government, state government, and more importantly, the private sector. That's where jobs are created. That's the engine room of an economy, the private sector. So it's a continuous thing of these 3 agencies. You can add the civil society, for accountability measures, just to ensure and monitoring and evaluation. All of these stakeholders are important for us to achieve that growth that we desire. Because 2.7% or even 3% is not what Nigeria should be excited about at all. Even the agricultural endowment, even the mineral resources that we have.
I'm glad you talked about
giving the people, right, the human resource angle.
I'm glad that you talked about agriculture. So let me take that to Mr. Yore. There was an email we got earlier from a farmer in Jigawa State who is saying that smallholder farmers do not have the capacity to produce enough to export, but that some people have to actually take advantage of the opportunities that they have to get some of these things done. That message came from someone in Jigawa, Mr. Mohammed Awal, a large-scale farmer from Jigawa State, who says businessmen and those corrupt civil servants and politicians, because of EFCC and government fighting corruption, don't take their loot to the bank. They resort to buying up farm products, stocking them in warehouses to export. How do we navigate?
Well, like I keep saying, it is very easy to point fingers. So I won't give you an analyst perspective. I'll give you a policy perspective, which is where you always go. Results, answers. You don't want to start telling you figures and all of that stuff. Like I told you clearly, you have to have an enterprise model. Federal government is an enterprise model. State government is an enterprise model. And the local government is an enterprise model. When they follow their models properly, they will set the tone to create the opportunities for the private sector. And I said we haven't done that for a long time. Now let me tell you, I just told you about the demographics of the house, which is like the demographics of the country. And then I also told you about the deploying of the resources, which is the Commonwealth, in a ratio that makes sure that no part of it is left behind. Now, if you don't have that model, it is difficult for you to do what's called taxation, which is the income tax rate of an individual.
Mr. Yore, if you don't mind, I want you to expatiate, if you don't mind, on what that means. And yes, you might be consulting for the federal and state governments. Right, but, here is the point that I'm trying to make. Use the analogy of an extended family. I think the example you give, making it a family, is because, it's just one nuclear family, father, son, and children and all. But now, make it an extended family.
And their fathers and their
exactly.
grandparents.
Exactly. So I want you to make it an extended family. They all live together. A father with many wives, maybe 36 wives, and all of them from different cultures of the world and all of that. So how will that enterprise model work? How does the enterprise model work in a way that collaboration can be there and every one of them can be working towards one vision as dictated by the father in the house?
And then the father in the house is not the center of the family.
Okay.
The mother in the house is the center of the family because you can track what one is doing and responsibility. So you do analysis of the family, it is to the mother. Also, the father is just a part of it, and then the grandparents and the children. So that's the way the money is distributed. Now, those who win the election based on their manifesto are given the keys to the treasury, which is our Commonwealth. And that money must be distributed in such a ratio that none of those three sectors I've told you, either in the family unit or the center, can suffer. Now, if you do not do that, it is difficult for you to, first of all, set what's called the income tax rate for the individual, the company tax rate for the company, and to determine where in the industry do you have a windfall profit, which, if not taxed, would destroy the industry itself. Now, if you don't have all of these mechanics in place, and then before I start talking about the charities, the churches and the rest of them, how the basis for all of that transaction, you find that you don't have a model that you're driving. And what you're just saying all the time are destination statements, but you can't get nowhere if you don't have a vehicle. And we need to take a very close look at that vehicle so that you can, first of all, be able to set the proper tax rates, like I just told you, and bring all the money in, and determine whether the promise of the central bank to be the counterparty to every transaction is fair or not fair. Now, that was corrected by the Minister for the Coordination Minister of Economy. He said it felt because of the vagaries and the changes in the currency, the promise to pay at the point of buying petrol is unfair. So they are going to support it by some measure of subsidy. Now, subsidy always seems like it's a difficult, wrong word. It is not a wrong word. What subsidy means is that if you break your leg and somebody puts POP on it, in the hope that when your leg heals, you can begin to walk again. Now, but if that's appropriate use of the subsidy, but if you're using it to cover inefficiencies in the system, then you're hiding to nowhere. And if you don't do that for 40 years, you can have another dose. So basically, you must go back to brass tacks. You must begin to look at why did we make this mistake and how long ago, and begin to correct from the very beginning. Now, if you ask me to take it even further, 4 years after or 5 years after independence, the fact that the politicians wanted to burn themselves down, self-immolation, somebody needed to come in to correct it. Okay, the army has corrected it. But in that process, it stopped the legislative arm of government, which is actually the keys, holds the keys to the treasury. And that has been the case for a very, very, very long time. Now, what that army period did was to make sure that it took away your voice and muted your reasoning. Now, if you go back to civilian rule, which is what you have, and you don't open up that voice, and generate that reasoning, you'll be on a hiding to nowhere, which is what we're seeing now. In fact, the internet is perhaps the best reflection of it, where you see some of that voice has been opened up, has been released, but the reasoning is still not there. You need to go back to that model, like I've told you. Families have their own models and working very well with it. Local government needs to have a model. State government needs to have a model. Federal government needs to have a model. And when these models work, then you can match the competition. What we're talking about here is in a world, it's a very competitive world. We can't afford to be doing things as if willy-nilly we're in charge and then just make announcements all the time. So I'll not do figures with you and analysis with you. I like what you're saying, Makinde. Stick to the policy perspective. What do we do to achieve results? Go back to the drawing board and build an enterprise model. Thank you.
Mr. Erumubo, when you were talking the other time, you mentioned the importance of the private sector in growing the economy. I think you called it the engine room of the economy, or you used some such expression. But I want to ask you, the private sector in Nigeria, they have all kinds of issues, let me say. And among those issues is the issue of them having to pay, I think it was 38 different taxes that they said to us once when they were our guests in the studio. I mean, so how much do you see our economy growing and growing faster if our dependence is on a private sector that does not seem to be growing much because the enabling environment doesn't seem to be there for that sector to grow?
Yes, it's interesting that you made this point because I also, I've been associated as a senior fellow with the Faith Institute, and I also led in producing reports on taxation just last year, November. And we also presented to the committee, the Fiscal Policy Committee on Taxation, headed by Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. We presented to one of the subcommittees. And it highlights how important taxation is and how it needs to be addressed, especially from the angle of multiple taxation. So what you find is that it's one of the key factors. So in almost all the surveys, if you go through the State of Entrepreneurship reports that the Faith Foundation releases every year, you would see that multiple taxation is always among the top 5 problems that businesses cite. In some cases, it's number 3. In some years, it will be number 2, and all that. And what you then find is that there are cases where, in fact, at the last conference, one of the business owners, MSME owners, she mentioned that tax officials would come to her shop and demand for all kinds of taxes. And when she complained that these taxes are just too much for one person to pay, they told her, if you like, close your shop. Another person will come and rent this shop and continue to pay the taxes. So that is the mindset from the people who are assigned to collect taxes. In some sectors, like those that operate in the logistics sector, it's one of the most affected. So it came up as, I think about 60% of businesses in that sector said multiple taxes was one of the biggest problems they faced, because again, they move from one point to another, delivering goods from one state to another. In fact, some of them said you would be in a particular state and then they'll be asking you for taxes paid in another state. You have to show the receipt, So it's one of the most, daring problems. And I'm very excited, hopeful that this, the Fiscal Policy Committee, I've been seeing what they've been doing, on taxes, trying to harmonize the taxes. My argument is that all of the main reform for taxes rely in the states. It's the state government that can make that effort. So there was some movement by international institutions some years ago for states to consolidate their tax laws. And what most of them did was to put together all their tax laws, tax policies. So many of the states have that consolidation of tax laws. But what you find is when you go into that, when you download that document from whether their website or wherever, you would see that the multiple tax problem is still there. So what they just did was to put all of the different laws together into one, and then they still retain that problem of, you have to pay this, pay that every year. So what the key recommendation here is that how can you harmonize all of these taxes into one? So I'm currently living, in the UK now at the moment, and what you do is once you pay your council tax, that's all you need to do as a citizen. For instance, once you pay that, it goes to the local council. They then decide what they want to do with it, whether it's to do street lights, whether it's to do road, whether it's to do whatever local needs that you have. They decide how to share it. So it's not a case where A will come, B will come, C will come, and at the end of the day, it affects your productivity because businesses are already dealing with too many multiple problems, from FX to payment of salary to growing your business, and then adding the tax bottleneck is a big problem. So my argument is harmonize those taxes. In the tax law, you still have things like bicycle fee, wheelbarrow fee. These are things that were done decades ago.
I think perhaps a good way to go about it would be to amend the constitution and remove some of them. Because some of them are actually very there. You need constitution, not just some laws.
Tax.
Not just, you are absolutely right. So the constitution and even the laws within the states, because if you go through the Tax Act, for instance, the one that, was reviewed by Okonjo, and at some point, you would see things, frivolous things that you wonder what are these things and why are we still charging businesses to pay these things?
Yeah, well, we could go on and on, Mr. Remember, but at least now people have some kind of ideas about all of these things. Let me take the last words of Mr. Iyore, because I know I'm almost set. I think I have an idea what he's going to say, but your parting shot.
Well, like I think I've been trying to explain to you what an enterprise model is. A clear example is how America, in less than 80 years, beat an old and aging Europe to production in less than 80 years. It was basically because of the enterprise models. Whereas a family would build a Mercedes, a Rolls Royce, and the rest of it, the Americans put all the components apart. And those small businesses who you see produce those components that were assembled. So it is nice to build an MSME, but if you don't raise those big merchants that know how to add value to the system, you really cannot grow the economy.
Absolutely.
And with merchants we now have are in the service sector, they're in the banking sector, they're defense of government.
All right.
And quite honestly, they don't know what it is to add value to the system.
I think I almost said it that we want to pass, close with the enterprise model. But I think, let me just hope that, someone has listened to you enough to know, okay, perhaps this is actually the way to go. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this morning. Charles Iyore is principal partner, Dion and Associates Limited, as well as Wilson Nerumebo, guest lecturer, School of Oriental and African Studies. Both of them joined us from the UK virtually. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, much ado about education. Well, that's it. It's our next conversation. Just stay with us.
Imagine lovely meals you can cook with these ingredients. You spend heavily, but no guarantee of a tasty meal. Not making a right choice of seasoning cube can ruin your meal, money, and confidence. For a tasty meal, do not compromise. Choose Gold.
Use Terra Gold for the rich, consistent taste your loved ones crave for. Good for soups, stews, and jollof. Terra Gold. 1 cube, endless possibilities.
Do you know that you can now print all your essential items for events without even having to leave your home? It's the Cast Print Combo Deal for all events.
Yes!
Weddings, conferences, birthdays, burials, etc. Starting from 495,000 Naira only. You get 50 invites 50 A2 size posters, 50 16-page brochures, 1 large backdrop banner, 1 roll-up banner, 50 jotters with pens, and 50 souvenir carrier bags. Whatever event you're planning, we can adjust to your budget and quantities. Just send your pictures and other information through WhatsApp, and we shall send a design for your approval. Approve your design, and we will produce with super high-quality digital print technology. We can even arrange delivery to your location. Call us now on 0913-156-5016 or 0812-794-9323 or visit our social media pages. Cast Prints, digital printing at super speed.
TerraCube is available in beef, chicken, jollof, and shrimp flavors at attractive prices of 50, 100, 200, and 500 naira.
TerraCube, unwrap joy, unleash taste.
University will mark its 25th anniversary on Wednesday, the 20th of March. Adding to the excitement, the university will proudly host the International Federation of Catholic Universities from March 17th to March 19th. Well, we have a panel with us who will give us more details about that. And maybe then you'll become interested, not just in Madonna University, but in also being a part of the celebrations which come up next month. It's my pleasure to welcome the DVC admin, chairman of the planning committee of the Silver Jubilee, Professor Martin Anaboso. Good morning. He's come along with former Madonna alumni, the national president, Chima Achu.
Good morning. My pleasure.
And Reverend Father Cyriacus Akeredolu, chaplain of Okija campus and secretary of the planning committee, is also here with us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm used to seeing Reverend Fathers in their cassocks.
He's wearing it inside.
Good morning, and thank you, Earl, for joining us. Now, Professor, tell us about this involvement of the IFCU, the International Federation.
Okay. The International Federation of Catholic Universities, which we call IFCU, will be part of this celebration because for them it's very special that Madonna University, being the only Catholic university in Nigeria who is a proud member of that federation, is celebrating its 25th anniversary. So on the 18th of January this year, 2024, His Holiness Pope Francis welcomed all of us in Rome during the centenary celebration. Over 400 leaders of Catholic University were there to celebrate the centenary of IFCU. Mm-hmm. And there, after the celebration, it was agreed that the next continent will host the event. And that is what led to the Federation settling in for Africa. And in Africa, they narrowed it to Nigeria.
Did you say that Madonna University was the only Catholic university in Nigeria?
No, that Madonna University is the only registered member of International Federation of Catholic Universities in Paris. Ah. Only registered member.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. So, what happened to St. Augustine?
Maybe if you...
They're not big enough?
Not that they are not big enough. For us, we know that the process of registration, so many other Catholic universities have applied, are trying to register, but the registration process is very rigorous.
Rigorous, okay. So, is Madonna University the first Catholic university in Nigeria?
Madonna University is the first Catholic university in Nigeria and in the West African sub-region.
Ah. Okay, you all have pride of place then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Let me ask you, Mr. Chu, what's the significance of the IFCU in this centennial celebration?
It's very, very significant because IFECU, as usually pronounced, is the umbrella body of all Catholic universities across the world. And Madonna being the first that was registered in Nigeria, and also the first private university in Nigeria. It's important to state that on record that Madonna University is the first private university in Nigeria.
What is the word you used again? Pride
of place.
Place.
Yes. So being a member, gives us, that advantage of, ensuring that the quality of education that Madonna gives is within the tenets, of Catholic principles, of a mixture of education and morals in terms of, having that holistic, education for an individual. So we are not just the first in the whole of Nigeria, but also across West Africa, and the only that is currently registered, like Professor Martin rightly observed. We are not the only one making, others are still making attempts and probably still in the various stages of trying to register with the global body. But we are the only recognized. And it's on the basis of that during the summit, which Professor Martins represented the university, Madonna was choosing to host over 250 universities that are part of this global body. They will be converging in Nigeria, to mark and celebrate the centennial celebration, because he just completed 100 years of his existence. So it's a very huge opportunity, and we are also using the opportunity to showcase to the world all the mileages, all the developments that has taken
the university has undergone in the last 25 years. So it's a period to tell our story.
Will the general public be able to participate in the activities?
Yes, it's open to the general public, and that is why we are here to sensitize Nigerians and our partners that will be coming from across the globe to be part of the event.
How can the people be a part of it, Reverend Father?
Of course, there are build-up of programs from the 17th of March. That
I was actually asking Father
Okay, just to add flesh to the introduction he has just made, we have a build-up of programs right from the 16th of March. We are expecting scholars around the group to grace this occasion. They will be coming from many Catholic universities around the world. And of course, we are also expecting some of our partners, stakeholders in the university. So there are a whole lot of programs, both intellectually and educative, that will play on that day. So it is open to all and sundry.
Okay. Father, I'm sorry, Professor. First of all, who is the founder of Madonna University?
Very good question. The founder is Very Reverend Father Professor Emmanuel Matthew Paul Ede, OFR, the pillar of education in Africa, a prolific writer, a humanitarian, and a lover of education, and a lover of his people.
He was a humble priest. So what inspired him to form this university? And what are the values?
Sure. Father Founder, after his ordination, traveled to the United States of America for further studies. And he gained admission to DePaul University, where he got his PhD. When he finished, because of his performance in the university, he was asked to stay back because they saw in him those values. They asked him to stay back, but he refused. He said, no, my people are suffering. I've gotten all the knowledge that I need here, but I need to go back to develop my people. They just came out of the Civil War, and a whole lot is going on there. So that made him to come back to Nigeria, and he settled down in LLA, a place where nobody wants to go. Right from there, he started a ministry called Catholic Prayer Ministry. So shortly the ministry took off. People started coming with their problems. He started solving problems, started catering for indigent people, homeless people, and a whole lot. Next, the question was, all these people I'm taking care of, how do I educate them? Because if you don't educate them, they will end up being criminals, prostitutes, and a whole lot. So that led to him trying to set up primary schools, tons of primary schools, secondary schools. And after that, the question came, they are now adults. What do I do with them? Do they just end here? That led him to setting up the first private polytechnic called Osisatec Polytechnic. After that, parents, due to the dwindling standard of education in Nigeria at the time in the 80s, that was almost taken over by cultism, prostitution, bribery, and other vices. People came to him complaining that my son, who is in so-so university, has just been killed as a result of court-related activities. This one will come back. My son came back from the university and sold my land and took away my properties. So he became worried. How can I help my people? He was going through a lot and seeing the pain the people were passing through. So that is how Madonna University came to birth.
Did he also found the Madonna Creche and Primary School? It used to be in Surulere. I think they've moved to Lekki somewhere now.
No, that is not related to Madonna University. So.
All right. So in a quarter of a century of existence, what contributions have the university made to the sector, the education sector in Nigeria? Mr. Achu?
Yes, Madonna University has come of age. I'm one of the proud alumnus. I graduated 20 years ago, and it's also a beautiful thing that over 100,000 graduates has passed through the institution in the last 24 years, and it is also worthy to mention that the quality of products the school has produced over the years in the over 11 faculties and over 43 departments of the university have really done well for themselves all over the world in various sectors, Fortune 500 companies, yes, and also within all the sectors of the economy, the Nigerian economy. We have gotten commendation letters from Zenith Bank, from Glo, and several other public sector institutions and private sector organizations commending the quality of the product of the school. And not only that, we have had instances where some of these institutions write letter to the institution to say, oh, give us your 10 best graduating students from accounting department. We have proofs of that as, to showcase the quality of our products. And not only that, across the world, you have so many of them doing well in various fields, like the current national president of the alumni, Mr. Chuka Nwachukwu. He's a group head with UBA Group. And you also have Rap Wifani that is in Saudi Arabia with Total Health. You have Blessing Nwachukwu Frank in Atlanta, Georgia. She runs 7 companies, including a real estate firm, that runs into millions of dollars.
Clearly, you have many bragging rights.
So many of them to mention. If you're coming back to Nigeria here,
I hope they have a Facebook page.
Yeah, of course they do. I'm telling you, verifiable
Is there
instances.
any faculty that stands out? Like if I wanted to study, let's say, surveying, for instance, and the first university that anybody would point to is, or if it's that you want to study, Madonna is the best.
Yes, we operate a multi-campus facility. We have 3 campuses in 3 states. Akbugo in Enugu State, we also have in Okija in Anambra State, and Elele, which is the main campus. So that of...
you have no Lagos campus?
Maybe you could consider that in the future, if NUC allows us.
Okay.
But
all of you came from out of town.
Yes, we came out of town.
Management is proud of you.
Yes.
Let me ask you, lastly, Father Akeredolu, as the Madonna University celebrates its 25th anniversary, what can the attendees expect from the festivities? And if you can mention 1 or 2 special events or activities planned for the milestone.
Okay, there are a whole lot of packages the attendees would see, because first of all, we would like to showcase the Madonna story, a story from the humble beginning to build a legacy, and importantly also to tell the story of the father founder and chancellor, who is regarded as the pillar of education in Africa, and he has been doing this quietly.
Is he still alive?
Yes, he's very active, bubbling. For the past 25 years, his efforts shouldn't go unnoticed. So this occasion is a platform to celebrate him, as well to celebrate the fruits of Madonna University.
Do I have to be Catholic to attend Madonna University?
No.
It's a simple question. No? Why are you provoking?
Even Muslims, any religions, you have, yes.
But I'm sure that there are certain rules that they have to adhere to because they are in a Catholic university.
Yes, but you don't need to be a Catholic.
I understand that.
It's a general rule.
I'm not Catholic, but I attended Catholic school for 7 years.
Yes. It's a general rules for everybody. So whether Catholic, non-Catholic, everybody is welcome. So likewise, we have our lecturers we have Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, all manner. Even we have expatriates from all around the world that are also teaching in the institution.
Okay. Well, I know you want to sell your school. Would you have a website?
Yes.
Okay. Please. Do you know? If you don't know, you just say. Okay, this is your website. We're already there now. For those who will be wondering.
Yes, www.madonnauniversity.edu.ng.
.edu.ng. Okay.
Yes.
Just in case somebody will say, I don't want you to have to ask Oga to talk for the. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Yes.
There is a question my colleague asked you that I would like you to answer. What stands Madonna University out? If you can do that in 30 seconds.
Wow. Madonna University, by its motto, is decency in education and morals. That is what we have been known for. In the past 25 years, parents, our partners from all over the world know that. And that is why IFCU has this regard for Madonna University. We have linkages with De La Salle University in Philippines, which is the #1 university in the Philippines. You can check it out with CEU, Central Escolar University, University of Philippines, about 6 universities in the Philippines. We have with
Prof, I said 30 seconds. You have spent 1 hour.
30 seconds is not enough for me to discuss Madonna University.
All right, thank you.
And you may not wish to answer this, but how do your fees compare to the fees of other private universities?
It may surprise you.
It'll probably be on the website anyway.
It may surprise you to know that Madonna University charges one of the lowest fee comparable to other private universities.
Okay, if you say so.
Yes.
If you say so.
For example.
No. Go and find out the rest.
Okay, then, so we wish you all the best next month when you celebrate your quarter century and you host members of the International Federation of Catholic Universities worldwide.
Thank you.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Professor Martin Anaboso, DVC and Chairman Planning Committee of the Silver Jubilee of the Madonna University. And he came along with Chima Achu, a former Madonna alumni, alumni national president. He left Madonna 20 years ago, he said. And we also had Reverend Father Cyriacus Akeredolu, chaplain, Okija Campus, and secretary of the Planning Committee. We wish you all the best. Thank you for coming to intimate us.
And we'll see you that day.
This ceremony in Okija or where?
Elele.
Where is Elele?
River State.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Just 20 minutes from the airport.
Okay.
Here we go again. Another marketing. Anyway,
all right, then.
Just before we go, some of you watching us on DSTV may miss the next conversation live, but hey, you won't miss it on YouTube. We have a paid segment coming up right now. It's actually happening in Bauchi State, the convocation ground, Gube campus of the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. It's a live program that is happening right now. But if you really want to be a part of this conversation about giving in scarcity, you can join us on YouTube. And those of you watching us from the UK and other parts of the world, you missed not a thing. But for those on DSTV, you'll be able to watch the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University convocation happening any moment from now, not immediately, but any moment from now.
Oh, you can watch the repeat.
And you will be able to watch it on YouTube after the program. So you just have it steady somewhere. So we'll take a short break and we are back with that topic I don't have, but I must give.
Balance.
You've been watching a live Channels television event.
see people standing on the podium. Thank you very much. Now, before we begin the exercise today, we would like to use this opportunity to seek for God's guidance, protection, and success of the event. So I'll first of all invite Malam Umar Shehu Aliyu, the Deputy Chief Imam of Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, to come forward and give us an opening prayer. Imam Umar. Imam Umar Shehu Aliyu, is he not around? Okay.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Respected brothers and sisters in this important gathering, indeed, Allah and His angels send blessings upon the prophets. O you who have believed, ask Allah to confer His blessings upon the prophets, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and ask him to peace him. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Wa barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Warham Muhammadin warham ali Muhammad كما رحمت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم قسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معصيتك، ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا بها جنتك، ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا، ومتعنا اللهم بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقواتنا أبدا منا ولا حروما. اللهم ولا لأمورنا شرارنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Now I will invite the chaplain of Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University in the person of Pastor Adebenga Ademi to come forward and also give us a Christian prayer.
We are in prayers. Heavenly
For